how to make 6 figures your first calendar year of selling real estate. So this information is going to be good for new agents. It'll also be great for seasoned agents who still want to get to that number. And for those of you who are completely committed to earning 6 figures in a calendar year, if you watch this all the way through, after I give you the 5 tips to ensure that you make 6 figures, I'll give you some bonus information on specifically what not to do and what to avoid. Well, my first calendar year selling real estate, 9 months, I've made a whopping $13,000. Right? That's not something people put you on a panel on to discuss. Certainly wouldn't watch a YouTube video to figure out how you did that. So I made all the mistakes so you don't have to, right? Now, subsequently, my next calendar year broke the 6-figure mark, then went on to sell over 100 homes a year for the last decade, did 200 deals a year twice. I have a coaching company with 100 coaching clients throughout the United States and internationally that I've taught these tactics and tips to, and they've produced multiple 6 figures in their careers in a calendar year. So the first thing that I would propose or suggest, if you're committed, is you're gonna have to work 50 to 60 hours a week. And just like any other business, if you wanna get it off the ground, you're gonna have to put on a substantial amount of time. The second step or suggestion would be is you really have to focus on outbound prospecting. You know, being on the phone, making calls for 3 to 4 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, being out in the field, knocking on doors, some form of being in the presence of prospects. Because I think part of the reason why people are not successful in real estate, which has a massive attrition rate, 80% of agents in the first calendar year are doing something else after that calendar year, is because people aren't very clear as far as what they've gotten themselves into. The third suggestion would be is you really have to focus on your skills, right? Because this is 100% a skill-based business. There's 20,000 agents in the multiple listing service in my geographic area. There's only 100 of us, myself included, who do over 20 million in volume in a calendar year. Well, why is that? Because the money's not in the service, the money's in the selling of the service. It's knowing how to sell the service that is the difference between people who make, $1 million a year and people who make $50,000 a year. Making a commitment to skills. And the commitment that I made to skills, once I realized that, is I started role-playing twice a day, 6 days a week, right? Learning what to say and how to say it. The fourth tip that I would propose or suggest to you is that all the leverage is on the listing side. And working with sellers is just a much more leveraged activity. So if I'm on, shooting this video with you right now, we have listings and somebody could be showing them and selling them. You can't really do that with buyers, right? So you have to make a decision. You can't be world-class at both. I made a decision early in my career that I was specifically going to focus on and master the listing side of the business. Making that decision has allowed me to list over 100 properties a year for the last decade. Step number 5 is getting proximity to a teacher, coach, or mentor, somebody who's just a little bit further down the path, right? And the reason you want to do that is because it condenses decades worth of learning into days, weeks, and months. It only costs us about $1,000 to get a real estate license. You get a C on a test and not be a felon yet. That's really the barrier to entry. So we understand, kind of going to, let's say, college or a university and spending $40, $50, $100,000 for some sort of degree that's supposed to equip us for a job. And yet in this industry, it's kind of interesting. We just have $1,000, get a license, and then we don't imagine that there's more education that's required. And that's just an unrealistic expectation. And that's part of the reason why, in my professional opinion, there's such a high attrition rate. So there's 2 routes you can go as far as education is concerned and getting proximity to a teacher, mentor, coach. One is you partner with someone as far as being on someone's team, right? And what you're looking for there is somebody who's going to give you leads. They have a system or a CRM that's dialed in, and you can just focus on prospect, lead, follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals. And you're working to learn, not necessarily working to earn, right? Because there's going to be a split dynamic. So you're going to pay for it. The second option is to get a real estate coach, right? Somebody who has sold properties in high volume over an extended period of time, so they can download their software from their head to you, right? And in doing so, it'll radically increase the learning curve. So those are my suggestions if you want to make a minimum of 6 figures in a calendar year, whether you're a new agent or a seasoned agent. And for those that are committed and have been watching all the way through, what I'm give you now is specifically what not to do, some bonus material. So the first thing that I would suggest that you definitely not do is to buy leads. Okay, it's not predictable, it's not duplicatable. and it's also capital intensive, right? So I wouldn't do that. I would focus on acquiring the skills and that foundation that's going to allow you to build a career, versus kind of be like a one-hit wonder. The second thing that I would definitely not do is, spending money on kind of lead gen via social. I wouldn't do that either. Again, the reason being is you want to focus on developing the mindset, developing the schedule, developing the skills that are required to actually do this in up and down markets. And doing so will mean that you have longevity in this business and not just a short kind of period of time. Third thing that I would definitely not do is to take rejection like seriously. We're in the rejection business, and this job of being a real estate agent, it's not kind of like physically hard, right? It's not like putting roofs on houses in Florida when it's 100 degrees outside. You get to stand in air conditioning and go blah, 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 right? What's hard is dealing with the mental kind of, rejection that you get high levels at a regular basis, just people telling you no. Don't focus on so much the results at the beginning. Focus on the activities that lead to the results. It's part of the game. It's part of the deal. Deals will fall apart. Leads will list with other people. You just need to understand that and keep chugging. So I hope that helps. And if this video was helpful to you, be sure to watch the next one. Properties are flying off the shelf. People are receiving 5, 10, 15 offers on properties, right? Prices are going up exponentially, okay? Loan products are such, can you believe this? There was actually a loan product where you could just simply state what your income was. How fucking fantastic is that? You could say, hey, I make $100,000. And nobody would verify it. You didn't have any documentation. Can you believe that? What was also happening is, I remember in the Oaks condominiums, condo conversions. You guys remember condo conversions? Yeah. I'm sitting in a one-bedroom model, and there are 50 humans smashed into that one bedroom, pushing, shoving, fighting, screaming to try to get their preferred unit. Now, I'm curious, does that sound familiar? So, how many of you guys between the calendar year of 2020 and April of 2022 received 10 or more offers on a... Yeah. How many of you guys either wrote offers or received offers that were 10, 20, 30, $50,000 of the asking price? Yeah. How many of you guys either received offers or wrote offers where you removed contingencies? Financing contingencies, removed appraisal contingencies, and the best of all, removed an inspection contingency, which is absolutely insane. Okay? So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because this time is no different than that time. Now, I'm not proposing or suggesting to you that the pullback or the correction is going to be equally as powerful as it was in 2007 and 8. It may or may not be. What I am suggesting, though, is this is just a season. Okay? There's seasons in life, and there's seasons in business, and there's seasons in the economy. Now, we live in Florida, so I understand we have a conceptual problem with understanding seasons. How many people besides me last week when it was 6 degrees put a sweater on? Hell yeah, you did. Put a parka on, right? Put socks over your flip-flops. Like, that's, like, I get it. Understand that. At the same time, if you've ever lived in a place or if you know people who live in a place where there's seasons, they understand that seasons change, don't they? Now, what are some of the ways that you can tell a season's changing? It's not a trick question, guys. Like, you can figure this out. I know we're realtors, but we can figure this shit out. I'm sorry? Temperature. Temperature, that's one way. Leaves changing, that's another way. And we can tell that this is just a seasonal change. How many people are noticing that the season's changing economically? Hey, did you notice the energy in the room? At first it was laughs and giggles. That one was like, fuck yeah. It is changing. Okay? So the question is, how many of you guys have been selling real estate for less than 5 years? Show of hands. Keep your hands up if it's less than 7. Less than 10. Okay, so like 60% of the room has never experienced seasons changing. Never experienced it. So guess what you're doing now that the season's changing? Freaking out. Quietly to yourself. On Instagram it looks positive, but inside you're like, holy shit. Okay? And why do you think that is? Because knowledge equals confidence and ignorance equals fear. The reason why you're afraid is because you don't know what to and do. You don't know what to do. So, what I am here to tell you is that moment, because I came up in winter, right? Like I built my business in a winter. So I was selling real estate in Gainesville. My first calendar year, I made $13,000. Yes. Not something people will put you on a panel on to talk about. Not something for sure that they put you on a podcast to hear your tips and tricks. Not something people would coach you to teach them how to do, for sure, right? But I can tell you that it was the most defining moment in my career because prior to that, I'm obsessed with this idea. 100 homes in a year. Obsessed. And I wanted to be the absolute best at my craft. And it's kind of like the universe was like, okay, you want to be the best? I'm going to give you the perfect environment to become the best. Right? To become the best. Because when it gets tougher, okay, how many people besides me are noticing deals are falling apart? Yeah. Yeah. Title, quite frequently. How many people are noticing offers are coming in less than the asking price? How dare they? How many people are noticing that they're actually asking? Who do you think you are? Right? How many people have had to ask for a price reduction? Oh my God. And then they say things to you like, well, how come you didn't put it in the Wall Street Journal, market it, and on open house and all this other stuff, right? What's the real reason it's not selling? I'm sorry, what's the real reason it's not selling? Price. Yes, and is getting a price adjustment a skill? Yes. 100%. Because did they say, you know what, JD, you've been trying really hard, bro. I like your beard. I think we should lower the price $100,000. Do they do that? No, they kick and fight and scream the whole time. And it's because 90% of people have the majority of their net worth tied up into their house. So they, right, when it comes to adjusting. So, but it was the most defining moment in my career because from that moment came 2,000 homes sold. Came now a coaching company with 100 coaching clients throughout the United States, 9 of which make over $1 million a year. Came speaking and came being in a position to be able to elevate others. So, what I'd like to do today is I'd like to give you a formula and some very specific strategies and tactics on how to thrive in any market. Who's up for that? Say aye. I'm sorry, who's up for that? Say aye. Okay, good. Right? Because you know what really bothers me? See people like these and they're like, you can do it, guys! Be positive! I'm like, that's horseshit. You need to give people actual, tangible, practical, tactical tools to actually go in the marketplace and do business. Because the last time there was a market adjustment and correction, guys, in this marketplace, I was selling real estate. We went from 18,000 realtors in 2008 to 9,000 the next year. Yep, see that face? Oh, geez. Those are called, as Jim Rohn would say, the facts. Because the problem is when times get tough, only the skilled get paid. If you're writing notes, write that down. When times get tough, only the skilled get paid. Period, end of story. So what's the formula, guys? You need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce outcome. Anybody know who said that? Nope. That would be awesome if it was. A guy named Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is one of the richest people on planet Earth. It's a company called Bridgewater. It's the largest hedge fund in the world. He started it in his garage. Now, when I
statement, you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome, I just thought it was cute, like a little clever. But reflection, and upon really thinking about it and studying it, it's exceptionally profound. I have to see what's true, because then and only then can I make decisions in accordance with what's true in order to get the outcomes that I want. So in other words, let's say we're seminar, and let's say we're in a different setting, and there's freezing cold water out there. It's like 32 degrees right below it, right before it becomes ice. And I'm like, listen, guys, we're going to think positively, formations, and we're going to sit in that water for 5 hours. What's going to happen? Yeah, you probably freeze to death. You get hypothermia. That's exactly what will happen. Right? Now, if instead I was like, hey, guys, we have these really special suits. It'll cover all your extremities, and it pumps water in there, keeps us all warm, and we're going to sit in there. Then what's going to happen? We'll probably be okay. Right? So you have to accurately assess what's true in order to produce the outcome that you want. Now, he also said, a dream, dealing with reality, plus determination, equals a successful outcome. A dream, plus dealing with reality, plus determination, equals a successful outcome. This equation you think is the hardest for most people? Yes, because it's not the dream, guys. Everybody has a dream. If I was to survey the room, you have different people dream, different places, different vacations, right? But you all have a dream. And it's not determination. You have various determinations, some more than others. The hard part is reality. Now, why is reality so hard? Anybody? Why is reality so hard to deal with?
You have to mentally, physically, and emotionally deal with it.
Yes, you have to mentally, physically, and emotionally deal with it. And the other thing you have to deal with is, guess what? You're not as fast as you thought you were. You're not as cute as you thought you were. You're not as skilled as you thought you were. And you're definitely not as wealthy as you thought you were. Does that make sense? So it stings. And our brains are wired to protect us from that. It's to protect our ego, right? It's the dealing with reality piece that's the most difficult. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, the first way you do that is you have to study. Become a serious student. Right now, as we're going through an economic change, it would make sense to become a serious student of economics. How many people in this room know what the Fed funds rate is? No. That's not what the Fed funds rate is. Anybody know what the Fed funds rate is? What is it actually? Yes?
It's the amount of banks charge each other overnight.
Yeah, it's the amount that banks charge the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve charge banks for money. You know what's interesting? We're a room full of real estate agents. And we didn't know that. There you go. He's a real estate attorney. So what I'm aware of is, do you think that would be important information? No. If you want to guide people accordingly. 100%. So we have to study. We have to become a serious student. So if you were to look at my library, and again, this isn't about me, but there's 50 books on finance. There's 50 books on persuasion. There's 50 books on sales. If I was to look at your library, would I be like, hey, you're a serious student? Nope. Okay. So that's something that you have to pay attention to. You have to study. You have to get an accurate assessment of the landscape. The second thing you have to do is you have to triangulate ideas with believable people. Now, this is very difficult to do in our common age. Do you know why? You no longer have to be competent to be famous. That's fucking true. You could be completely full of shit and have people follow you because you're entertaining and you jump around like this. Right? So the challenge is to find believable. Now, what do you think I mean by believable? Sorry? No, persuasive, not that. What's believable? Realistic, what? Proven. Somebody who has consistently produced the outcome you wish to produce over an extended period of time. Year after year after year after year. That's somebody who's believable. And you triangulate ideas with them. So what I mean by triangulate is you sit down with them and you're like, hey, I've studied. We had a conversation before we, started this festivities. And she's like, hey, I'm thinking this. And she triangulated ideas with a believable person. I'm like, you may want to think about this. One of the best questions you can ask a believable person, write this down, is what do I currently believe to be true that isn't? What do I currently believe to be true that isn't? It's one of the best questions you can ask a believable person. A lot of you guys believe that this is going to stop in a short time. We just had a high inflation rating, 8.2%, which guarantees in November we're going to have another Fed funds rate hike, which is tied to the 10-year Treasury, which means that interest rates are going up. 8, 9, 10%. A lot of people imagine that's not possible. Oh, well, you believe that to be true, and it isn't. Okay? So you got to find believable people and triangulate with them. Proximity is power. All right. So let's study. Let's see reality. Okay? This is a historic chart of inflation over the last plus years. Okay? So the last time inflation was this high was in the 70s. Now, this was from like a month or so ago. We just had a reading. It's like 8.2%. This is the Fed funds rate. Now, notice the last time inflation was up at 8%. Where was the Fed funds rate? 8%. You know what the Fed funds rate is now? It's below 4%. That means we have a lot more room to what? Go! That's right. If we want to get it under control. Now, why is it important to get inflation under control, guys? Anybody? Why is it important? I know we hear the word all the time. You guys, anybody feel it at the grocery store or the gas pump? 100%. Why is it important to get that under control? Okay, things will get too expensive, requiring more dollars to buy the same goods and services. The reason why that's important is if you look at countries that have it out of control, like Turkey or Venezuela, are those usually fun places to live? No. So we have to. Not, it would be nice, not, it would be cute. We have to get it under control. How do we get it under control? If the problem is too much money in the system, how do you get money out of the system? Make it hard to get access to money. How do you make it hard to get access to money? Make it more expensive. Guys, this isn't rocket science. That's what's happening. Okay? But then look at, this is 50 years of mortgage rates. So, rate was that high. Mortgage rates, look, 8, 9, 10, late 70s. Guys, it's just another one of those. Now, I know it's very difficult to get clear information because how many people have seen something on social media, prices are going to go back up? I've seen that. How many people saying, it's going to go down like 50%? Yeah. The difficult part is being able to decipher what information is accurate. Okay? Now, what's happening locally in our markets? That top line are sales. So July of 2021, 7,890 transactions. Look what's happening. So the red line is sold properties, and the white line is active listings. What trend are you noticing? More inventory and less sales. That's exactly right. So when that happens, what are some byproducts? You actually got to work now. God damn it, got to work. That's garbage. You mean I can't just put in a multiple listing and I'll get 10 offers in 24 hours? No. Nope, can't do that anymore. So this is reality. Now when I show this to people, sometimes they're like, well, you know, Aaron, you're being really negative. You gotta think positive. And I'm like, that's dumb. Because you have to see what's true in order to produce the outcome that you want. I have to prepare myself. So, it's in the dealing with reality, guys, that the millions of dollars that you're after, it's where it lies. It's in the dealing with reality that all the skills that you want to acquire is where it exists. It's in the dealing with reality that the version of yourself that you aspire to be lives. Look at the person next to you and be like, I can't wait to meet that version of myself. That's one that's disciplined, that one that has skills, that get price adjustments at will, the one that can price property competitively at the beginning of the actual listing versus having to beat them up 10 times. How many people posted between 2020 and April 2021, we sold it for $50,000 above the ask? How many people did that? Raise your hand. Don't lie. How many people now are going to post, we had to reduce it 3 times to sell it? Wait a minute. One was you, The other one's not. The truth is both of them aren't. That's the truth. They're both not. They're market driven. So, what we get isn't what makes us truly happy. It's who we become that'll make us happy or sad. So this environment really provides us an opportunity to become. So how do you reality? There's story and strategy. Okay? Now, which one do you think, so I have this coaching company, agents throughout the country, some of them in this room, some of the top producing agents, 0.01% of all agents in the United States. What do you think most people want to talk to me about? Is it state, story, or strategy? Strategy, yeah. What actually keeps people stuck, though? I'm sorry? Okay, so I'm hearing different answers. I'm hearing story, and that's what most people say. It's the story that you tell yourself. I'm not fast enough, not quick enough, not strong enough. I'm too fat, I'm too skinny. I wear glasses, I don't wear glasses. I have red hair. Whatever story we tell ourselves, right? But it's actually not what keeps us stuck. What keeps us stuck is state. Because in the right state, you will come up with the right story strategy. Let me give you an example. How many people in this room besides me have had an experience either in a personal context or a professional context where you said to yourself, this is unacceptable?
Quick background. Wife and I have 4 young kids, so ages 3 months to 6 years old. And so I'm always tired, and time is very limited for me. I own 3 businesses. One is an education business. One is we've got ownership in 10 rental properties, 9 short-term, 1 long-term, and then my primary vocation where I spend most of my time is in wealth and tax consulting. And so we work with lots of different families across the country. Our sweet spot is between families that earn more than $1 million a year or are between 5 and 150 million or net worth. That's just the sort of the spot we lean into, but we work with lots of other families. So anyway, all that. I want to tell you a quick story, and I think Aaron's heard me say this. I heard this several years ago, and it just is big impact for me. So 1989, the Chicago Bulls draft Stacy King. Stacy was a high-flying player out of Oklahoma, and so they pick him with the 6th overall pick in 1989. They're going to pair him with Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan. So they go through training, they go through the summer, and they get to their first game against the Cleveland Cavaliers in November. And Stacy King plays terrible, scores 5 points. So he's in the locker room after the game, and the reporters are all huddled around him, and they stick a microphone in his face and say, Stacy, you got to feel a little embarrassed. All this hype, and you score 5 points in your first NBA game. Tell us how you feel. Stacy pauses for a second. He said, are you kidding me? I'll remember tonight forever as the night that Stacy King and Michael Jordan combined for 59 points. MJ went for 54, right? It's all about perspective. Right? Stacy's perspective in that moment was a lot different than the reporter. So in keeping with the theme around margin, I want to give you at least a different perspective on financial margin. What does that mean? What is it and what is it not? But before I do that, let's set the table and kind of get on the same, I think, foundation together. Most of this would not be uncommon, but I just want to say it. I want to get it in the air. We are in a contractual relationship with money and with society. And I've even heard some of you say it since I've been here. That contractual relationship is that we trade our time for money. And we're okay doing that because we justify it that it's an ends to a means to an end, right? So I'm going to trade my time for money until I get to this age. Or I'm going to trade my time for money until I get to this income level. Or until I get to this asset level. Or whatever it is, we justify that trade. But I think, as I've worked with nearly 500 families over the last 13, 14 years, here's what I'm convinced of. There's a much deeper connection to that trade of time for money. And it's that we've actually built most of our value, identity, self-worth around what we do. And if we took out what we do, very few people actually know who they are. And so there is a deep emotional attachment to this trade of time for money. Now, if you're in this room, I guarantee you're good at what you do. Primarily, making a lot of money through real estate, right? But let me tell you why that's problematic. There's a couple of reasons. The first is when we have this justifiable, and it's justifiable, right? Hey, I'm going to trade my time for money as a dad of 4 kids so that we can live the lifestyle that we want to live, right? Society agrees with you. It's okay. So everybody in your corner is just nodding their heads. That's a good trade. Keep doing that. But because we have a deeper connection of value, identity, and a deep sense of our own self-worth in what we do, we actually also receive a chemical dopamine kick from doing what we're really good at. So not only are we emotionally attached to this trade, we are chemically and psychologically attached to continue to trade our time for money. But then here's the other thing that happens. In the name of creating more wealth, more income, more money, we actually build structures that keep us in that mousetrap forever. So imagine the hamster being the one that builds his own hamster wheel that he then runs around in until he's exhausted. That is what we do, whether we know it or not. So think about it this way. I was a part of a company. I have since left that company for lots of reasons. I was a part of a company that we went from about $900,000 in revenue to just under $4 million in 7 years. And we scaled the company. But every year we had to do new double-digit growth for me to make the same amount of money as I did last year. And at the end of 7 years, I'm like, what the heck? I'm not good with this anymore. Like, why is it that we keep setting record income numbers, but you're requiring more of my time to keep what was good last year? It's because we're actually the authors and creators of those self-circulating, self-restricting structures, because our value is so deeply attached to what we do and where we make income. Now, I'm not a philosopher, so I'm not trying to be overly psychological here, but it's important that we can step back from what is the air that we regularly breathe and acknowledge that what gives us a truly rich life is not the amount of money that we make. And I haven't been on many deathbeds, but I know of no one at the end of life who says, you know what, I had too much time. I should have shaved a little bit off, right? Because the reality is we will continue as successful, entrepreneurial, high-income earners. We will trade our time for money with no limit, meaning that the margin that we had in life gets gobbled up, and we self-justify why we do it, but we do it until we actually eliminate all margin that's in our life. Dr. Richard Swanson wrote a book, he's a medical doctor, called Margin. I recommend it. It comes from a particular Orthodox Christian point of view, but he's got some excellent stuff as a medical doctor on the research around margin. And he defines margin this way. Margin is the difference between our load and our limits. And later on, he cites a study that the evidence is clinically undeniable that the effects of a marginless life are catastrophic, emotionally, socially, relationally, physically, and ultimately financially. So to live a marginless life, which is to have no margin or no time buffer, is to actually live a very poor life in all of the sense of the word. And so what I want to maybe propose, and then I'm going to get into some really specific stuff, and I want to have lots of time for questions. What I want to propose is that instead of interacting with that truth, our contractual relationship of time for money, instead of looking at it in a binary way and saying, I either give more time to make more money, or I get my time back, but now I've got to sacrifice monetarily, lower my lifestyle, lower my expectations. I want to suggest there's a third way. What if you actually got more time and more money simultaneously? What if it was actually about restructuring what you have and what you're doing? Let me synthesize it this way. What if financial margin isn't actually about making more money? What if you create financial margin a different way? I think a lot can be said here, but I want to press in to 3 things specifically that I believe that I've seen with the families I've worked with across the country on how real financial margin, not perceived. And so I don't know if you've ever heard of Plato's allegory about the cave. I love this. I had heard it years ago and was recently reminded of it. So the basic summary is this. Plato says there's a group of people in a cave, and they're stuck down there, and they've got chains on their wrists. And finally, one person looks down and realizes the chains actually aren't locked. So he takes the chains off. And he looks around, and he finds what he sees to be like a little crack of light. And so he climbs up the cave, no chains on, and gets there. And the closer he gets to this little peephole of light, the brighter it is on his eyes. And he keeps pressing through. And so finally he works his way through, and he gets out of the cave, and he's out in the middle of the forest. And he can't open his eyes. It's too bright. And he finally does, and he realizes, oh my God, there's this whole other world out here. So what does he do? He runs back down into the cave and starts telling everybody. And nobody believes him. Nobody wants to believe him. And they all, in Plato's allegory, stay in the cave, chained to handcuffs and locks that have no restriction on them. They could take them off. And so here's the reality. As high income earners, we are successful. But society also wants to continue to press on us that the only way we stay successful is to continue to make the trade of time for money. But the wealthiest families among us know that that's total crap. So let's talk about 3 ways, sort of specifically, that I've seen, that I believe, and I'm just going to write them down up here. I'm a visual guy myself. Ooh. Number 1, how do we create financial margin without actually having to trade more time for money? Number 1, tax planning. If I were to look at your tax return, I guarantee you, everyone in this room's single largest expense every year is your tax bill. Guarantee it. I had an accountant tell me one time, I was complaining, this is years ago, I was complaining about my own tax bill. She looked at me and she said, that's just the price to pay for making a lot of money. And I said, I totally reject that, and I'm about to fire you. Why am I paying you? That can't be true. I can't be the first dude ever that is super tired of paying that amount of taxes. There's got to be a better way. And the reality of her answer was she knew no better way. And so I went on a ferocious search personally to say, how do I save more in taxes? And let's put it this way. I think this will be helpful. If you make $1 million a year, okay, you're probably left with, depending on what state you're in, you're probably left with somewhere between $650,000 or $700,000. So here's my question to you. How much time does it take for you to make $1 million in a year? Just think about that, whatever it would be. If you're if you're half that right now in your income, just double that, right? Wouldn't it be better, wiser, more sustainable? Instead of make $1 million a year that you pay $350,000 of tax on and are left with $650,000 and it costs you this amount of time, wouldn't it be better to simply make $650,000 to $700,000 a year with little to no taxes on it? Wouldn't you then theoretically get back 30 to 35% of your time? Of course you would. Because if it takes you X amount of time to get to $1 million, but you're only getting to $1 million because you are paying taxes on that money. There's a family out in San Diego. He's a business owner. His businesses do about $20 million a year. He's making about $2 million a year in San Diego. You want to talk about a bad tax bill? I mean, that guy's on his top dollars paying almost 60%. I mean, it'll make your stomach turn. And so he came to me. I met him at a conference, and he said, will you help me? And I said, well, tell me what you really need. Well, come to find out, because of the expenses of carrying business, because of the taxes he had to pay, he really only needed $500,000 a year in his pocket. He's got a big family. I said, so really, let's stop going after $2 million a year in revenue. That's not the thing. The real thing is, how quickly can we get you to $500,000 a year of tax-free passive recurring revenue? And of course, to him, I mean, if I ask you that question, right? How long would it take you to get to $500,000 a year of passive, recurring, tax-free revenue? You're like, 2 generations? 18 months, and he didn't have to save another dollar. We took what he already had and got more juice for the squeeze. And so we were able, in 18 months, to get him to $484,000 of tax-free, passive, recurring revenue. And he didn't have to save another dollar. So my point is, the wealthiest families know that their single greatest asset building tool is to take back money from the government and put it in their own pockets. And by the way, the government wants you to do it. That's why tax deductions exist. The tax code, and I've said this before, but the tax code has grown, but it used to be about 6,000 pages. Only 23 of those pages talked about raising taxes. The other 5,977 pages told you how to avoid paying taxes. The federal government's incentive is to give wealthy families and high income earners the ability for tax deductions and credits to help create stability, jobs, and revenue and income for the rest of society. So, the first place that any and every family should start is a deep analysis of how they reduce their tax bill. Period. The tax savings can be your single largest wealth building tool. Number 2. Proper structure. Maybe you own the right stuff. Maybe you do have assets. Maybe you do have passive income. But are you certain that you own it in the right way? Let me give you 2 examples that I've had conversations with Aaron directly on. So maybe you have some stocks, right? Maybe you have some investments in the stock market. Okay? Maybe you have some real estate. We tend to think about those as totally separate silos. My real estate's doing this. My stocks are doing this. What I would say is actually they need to be serving and working together. Here's an example. If you've got $1 million in a brokerage account, so like a non-retirement account, you're investing in the market for growth, maybe for a little income. What I would tell you though, that if you're not having that stock account actively generate tax losses for you, it's called direct indexing, that your stock account is only doing half the work it should. me tell you how it works. It is computer and algorithm trading that does not affect the long-term performance of a portfolio. So example, if the market's down 20 last year, 2022, and it was, and you were invested like the market, you'd be down about 20. Same thing. Doesn't affect performance. What it does, though, is it takes advantage of the volatility on a daily basis to create tax losses so that at the end of the year, maybe you're still down 20. But last year, you had $280,000 in losses on paper at your disposal. Why does that matter? Well, over here on your real estate portfolio, you should be buying real estate, taking advantage of bonus depreciation, taking a massive deduction on the front end. But then let's say that you find somebody comes in and wants to pay you for that property. Well, now you've got what's called Section 1245 depreciation recapture. You've taken a deduction that lowers your cost basis in the property. Well, how are you going to offset that gain? Well, your stock account has been working over here in the background, generating losses for you. You take those losses on paper and you apply it over here to your real estate.
We got some of the most powerful, dynamic real estate agents in the country together for 3 solid days. Let's go.
We are gonna ball up right now. I haven't seen any of them play, but I know Jeff is gonna be super competitive, and I think Kelly's gonna be super competitive as well too. So Aaron's gonna be soft, you know. Aaron's gonna be easy, bro, to ball up, you know.
What's that?
We'll see. We'll see.
It's tough, but they ain't shit. I got a broken back. I'm over here scoring points on them left and right. They don't want none of this.
Let's go. Run. When we get done with this and Ryan comes back, there's only be a couple people left. But there's a bin. There's a bin. No workouts yet. There's a bin with a yellow top, and there's cami bottoms and tops in there. So I want everybody to go through that and find a matching pair, like a pair to put on for yourself. You're gonna need those tomorrow.
All right.
Your personal power as a human is the speed with which you can take something from here and put it into reality. And the speed at which you can do that, right? And that's interesting. Because in the right state, I think you can do that quickly.
Not only that, but like realizing that we don't have to do it all ourselves. Like one of the things that I'm kind of realizing more and more, it's like the who. Like in that Mr. Beast interview, Mr. Beast is like a famous YouTuber. What he did is he created a chocolate bar called Feastables. And when they asked him how he created that, he's like, we just found the person that was the best at this, we found the person that was the best at that, we found this person, and put them together. And it's kind of the same thing with EXP. Glenn Sanford, the CEO, is really good at finding the right people for everything, bro. So like for like the international team of EXP, he hired this guy named Michael Valdez, who did it for, I don't know if it was Remax or Coldwell Banker, but he grew their international brand, or he grew them internationally. So Glenn basically said, all right, who's the right person to help me this? And that's what some people are really good at. And that's what I'm trying to become really good at, is like okay, who, like from mental to action, a lot of times we get caught up in how versus who. Most of us get so caught up in the in the how. Yes. I gotta do this, I gotta talk to this person. Dude, you gotta find one person that has already done it, hire them, and then it's even like Ryan Pineda, he's getting really good at finding the right who's, like unbelievable. Like it
helps when you have lots of research.
There's a marketing guy that did all the marketing for one of the top flippers in the country, and he ended up acquiring him recently to consult for him and handle his marketing as well too. And what I thought when he did that, I was like, it's the right hoop. He's not thinking about like, hey, who can I train to do this? He literally went to the guy with the best track record and said, hey, come set this up for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. So a lot of it is just like, even like I hit up Aaron for his integrator recently. I told him, hey dude, because I'm tired of like trying to figure stuff out myself or dealing with people that haven't implemented that stuff. And Aaron's like, well, she's expensive. I'm like, I'm okay with it, because all I'm going to have to do is, hey, this is kind of the vision. This is what I'm looking for. And she's going to say, can I make a suggestion? I would change this. I would change that. She's like, great, let's do it. I'm going to give her some money, and then it's going to be done.
It's going to be done. Because he saw on the website
The value.
and he saw the website that I just did, and he's like, oh, this is dope. Like, this is good. And then instead of him trying to figure it out, it's like...
It happened for Ricky, too. He came across a videographer recently that's shooting some stuff for him, and a photographer. It's the right hoop.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, dude, this guy's awesome, bro. Like, so reliable, so this, so that, reasonable in this. It's the right hoop, basically.
You didn't say die.
Booyah. There's not enough room for the both of us. Look, if you ever calling me, call me number one. Oops, I did it again, about to double up. Look, up here, definition of a level up. All my celebrations always been premeditated, always been a step ahead. That's why you finish seconds later. Difference between us, I go back to back, you back to basics. These are facts you face, and I'm just saying you were dealing with the wrong one. This time, don't come for mine. Went the wrong way, now it's the wrong way. I'm in my zone, I'm in my zone, I'm in my zone, I'm in my zone, I'm in my zone.
The point of today was to create drag, right? There's in business, anything we do, there's a point of where we feel very comfortable, we're doing stuff, we have our shorts on and we're swimming gracefully in the water, and the next thing you know, we add these cammings, we add this friction, we add this drag, and it slows us down, it weighs us down. And there's two options. We can get completely rid of the drag and throw it to the bottom of the pool, or one of the other things we can do is we can make a flotation device out of it. Give us the ability to catch our breath and focus outward on different things. So hiring a new VA, hiring a new person to take care of the sales team, taking care of the ops side, whatever it is. Those are the outlets that let you come back to the surface, refocus, and find the next adventure you're going to.
Yeah, I came from nothing, but look at me now, I'm crushing. Old man had a hold that cutlass. Conan with a rope was cutting. Yo man, let me show you something.
So we're here over at Escapeology in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and the intention and purpose of being here is to work together as teams, right, and to solve problems, because that's what we do in our businesses all the time. So I'm excited to not only participate, but see how this works out.
Let me just vocal, I'm doing less on socials.
I think we're gonna win, for sure we're gonna win. We're competitive. I think we got a good set of guys. The other team's a little bit weak. I don't think that they collectively have the intelligence to make it happen. And I think we're gonna knock it off the box. I think when it comes to the intelligence and the competitiveness and putting it together, I'm gonna call out myself and nominate myself as MVP.
Man, look at how far I came up. I could be dead and gone, but God had different plans to save us, cause I'm from nothing.
I think it was a collaborative effort. That's the thing about teams. It's teamwork makes the dream work. So it's everybody coming together. I think we put our combined knowledge and everything and made it happen.
And then Jose came in at the end and gave his one contribution. You want to see Jose the entire time?
He had no interest. Zero.
I don't have any interest. I just know my strengths.
Yeah.
And there's certain strengths that I have, and that's definitely not one of them.
First, there ain't no time to rehearse it. That's just the way that it was. Yeah. That's the way that
Hey, what we were saying though, which is really interesting, is like two things came up. It's like one, how quickly, if you're not engaged, your brain wants to shut down. It's like, fuck it. It's like, did you do that? Like, fuck it. Your brain just shuts down, right? Which is interesting because like we're trying to solve I was telling John, it's like, well, this is no different than me trying to like life hack. What's the fastest way for me to solve this problem, right? And then the other thing I thought was interesting is I heard from Tony Robbins recently has this meme going around that if you were going to teach your children 3 things, these are the 3 things. One is to be able to recognize patterns. Because there's patterns in the world and you just recognize those patterns. 2 is to be able to use the patterns. So you recognize them and then you can deploy them. That goes along with attention. That's a pattern and it works, and figuring out that pattern and deploying it. And then 3 is to be able to create patterns, right? Because that's what we were doing. We're trying to figure out patterns. And everybody's like looking around like, I don't know, what do you think? You push a thing or you don't, you figure it out and you're like, okay, cool. And you move forward, so.
The only thing
I thought that was fun.
The only thing I contributed is we moved the table, bro.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah,
careful.
Tell me a little more about that.
Careful.
Yeah, I think it's probably not a good idea to say. But thank God we moved that table, because that helped us figure everything out.
Which means it didn't help you figure anything out. So properties are sitting on the market longer. We're not getting as many showings. I was talking to Jim at breakfast this morning. He's like, yep, showings have slowed down, right? So what I find very interesting is that oftentimes we begin to imagine, right, that when we see people that are producing those sizable outcomes, that it came very easy and that it wasn't difficult. But we all have challenging times in our life, right? And just like everybody that's on this stage, one of my challenging seasons in life came in 2006 and 2007. So I started selling real estate, and I was at school at the University of Florida, right? Go Gators. And I didn't know what I was doing. So my first calendar year, I made $13,000. Now that is definitely not something people put you on a panel on to talk about. It's definitely not something people would invite you on a podcast to be like, specifically, how did you do that? And it's definitely not something that people would like pay you to teach them how to do, right? And then I got this accurate assessment of reality, and I started to think differently and behave differently and learn different skills. And I was on track to do about 60 transactions that next following year. And then my mom had a health event, right? It was an exceptionally serious health event that required my immediate attention and all the family's immediate attention, right? So I shut down my business within a week, gave away all the listings, gave away all the pendings, and moved back home to a brand new marketplace, right? And then the marketplace crashed. Yay, that's a super fun time, right? It completely obliterated and imploded. Now, what's interesting is that during that marketplace beginning to crash in 2007, so that's what we were doing before, right? And then there's this implosion, this complete destruction, annihilation of the market. Now, many of you guys in this room, let me ask you a question. How many people in this room have been selling real estate for less than 5 years by show of hands? Okay, how about less than 10? Okay, good. So what's interesting is probably about 60% of the room has no idea what I'm talking about, right? Neil knows what I'm talking about. Jim knows what I'm talking about, right? So we're imagining, I'm starting to hear things. Are you starting to hear things and noticing like an anxiousness amongst agents and amongst lenders? I'm noticing some heads nodding, yes, right? Anxiousness, imagining that this is like a complete meltdown and explosion. That is not what this is. This is a normal market gyration, a market correction, right? Now, what's underneath that anxiousness? Why do you think people are asking me questions regularly like, hey, Aaron, when do you think the marketplace is going to get better? Hey, when do you think this is going to change? How long is this going to last? What's underneath that? Yes, fear. And do you know why you're afraid is because you don't know what to do. Because knowledge equals confidence and ignorance equals fear. And that's really just what's true, is that I'm just not clear on what to do, right? So let me show you what a marketplace completely imploding looks like. Inventory explodes. And I'm talking explosion. I remember in South Florida, we had 22,000 homes on the market in our county. 22,000, right? We're freaking out because inventory went from less than a month's supply to like 2 months supply. That's not what this is, okay? What also happened is that foreclosures skyrocketed. In South Florida, almost like 50% of all transactions were foreclosures, okay? Imagine that. The other thing that happened is that sales came to a screeching halt. They essentially just stopped, right? For a specific amount of time. And prices have gone up exponentially over the last 18 to 24 months, correct? Yeah. Yeah. How many people posted something about we sold it over 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 asking. How many people did that? Good. Are you going to do a post now that we had to get 3 price reductions to sell it? Is that what we're going to do? So we take credit on that side, but we don't want to take the credit on the other side. But imagine it going in the complete opposite direction. Imagine instead of prices going up 30, 40%, they're going down 30, 40%.
I am in one of the most powerful and strong real estate markets in recorded history. Properties are flying off the shelf.